You know what I found extremely wicked, shockingly evil, and vile about this film? Well, early on, the cop who pulls over and arrests Ted Bundy is played by James Hetfield. James Hetfield, who, some of you may ask, this James Hetfield of Metallica. I had to rewind and check if it was really him. So this guy went from being a heavy metal rocker to playing a cop who helps take down one of the most notorious serial killers in American history. Good for you, James. Good for you. What is up, everybody? Random Man here, bringing you my review for Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile. Based on the memoir, The Phantom Prince, My Life of Ted Bundy, written by Elizabeth Kendall, the plot of this biographical crime thriller tells the story of serial killer Ted Bundy, played by Zac Efron, through the point of view of his former girlfriend Liz, played by Lily Collins, as a courtroom frenzy involving Bundy ensues and enchants 1970s America. Going into this movie, I was pretty interested to see how a biopic about the famous serial killer Ted Bundy would play out given the cast that was assembled for this film. Now, I've known quite a bit about Ted Bundy ever since my freshman year of high school, which was over 7 years ago now, in that the literature class I was in where we read the book A Lesson Before Dying involved the death penalty. And that caused me to research a bunch of famous people who have received the death penalty, which included Ted Bundy, and I was immersed in knowing how extremely wicked, shockingly evil, and vile this guy was, to borrow this movie's title and what was said while he was being sentenced to death. What also elevated my interest in seeing this film was the casting of Zac Efron as Ted Bundy. I always felt he was an inspired choice to play the serial killer, not just from his looks, but also in him being given a chance to stretch his acting legs and let us see what he could do in portraying this character. And a lot of the positive buzz surrounding this movie ever since it premiered at, say it with me now, the Sundance Film Festival back in January did involve Efron's performance. Starting out with the cast and their performances, we have, again, Zac Efron as Ted Bundy. Now, like I've just said, I've always had faith in this guy portraying Bundy well, but there was quite a bit of criticism leveled at the actor before the movie's release, as he's a former Disney star, having been in the High School Musical films, and he's also done quite a bit of comedies as of late, such as the Neighbors films. I thought he was very funny in both of those movies, and now having seen Efron as Bundy, I can say without a doubt he delivers his best acting performance ever here. Like I've mentioned before too, Efron has Bundy's look down packed, as both of them have a striking resemblance to each other. The real-life Bundy was considered to be very handsome by many women despite all of the heinous acts he was accused and tried for, and Efron in real life today is considered to be very handsome as well. So there's that, but then there's also Efron's ability to capture the sinister charm that Bundy had, not just in wooing Lily Collins' Liz character, but also in how he composed himself in the courtroom proceedings in trying to maintain his innocence, even though he was found guilty to have murdered numerous women. There's also Lily Collins as the former girlfriend of Bundy, Liz. I think she does some strong work here as well. Her character exudes a lot of pain and denial in discovering all of the murders that Bundy had committed over the years, and she had little ways to cope with it aside from heavy drinking and watching all of the proceedings occur on TV as the Bundy case swept the nation. The rest of the supporting cast include the likes of Kea Scodelario, who is almost unrecognizable with the hair and big old glasses she has, across the course of this movie. I don't want to give away who her character is in case you don't know, as she is vital to what does progress throughout the film. There's John Malkovich as the judge who is presiding over the trial of Ted Bundy. He's basically just being John Malkovich here, and he's good at what he does in this film. There's even Jim Parsons as the prosecution going against Ted Bundy and doesn't believe his facade for a single second. And Haley Joel Osment also plays a co-worker of Liz here, and I didn't see much point to his character. He is similar to how Kea Scodelario's character is implemented to the plot, but I saw less point in his character. I also mentioned the James Hetfield cameo in the intro of this review, so there's that as well. Overall, I think the cast here does some mostly fine work, but of course, the standout of the cast here is Zac Efron as Ted Bundy, and Lily Collins also turning in some solid work. The screenplay by Michael Werwey, as I mentioned earlier, does set this movie up to be told from the perspective of Lily Collins as Liz. This approach to telling the story of Ted Bundy was quite a unique one, as we get to see an outsider's point of view in what was going on with somebody whom she thought she loved. However, as the movie went on, I thought that this approach neutered the narrative in not giving us more than surface level details about the core subject matter. One would think that with a movie like this, and it being about Ted Bundy, it would go into the inner psyche and inner workings of this twisted mind who was able to carry out all of these murders and think that he was going to get away with it with his good looks and charm. But that is not the case here, as we get bits, literally iotas, of what Bundy did all over the narrative, and we only saw one glimpse of one of the murders that he committed all throughout his life. And I'm not saying that the movie needed to show more of the murders that Bundy committed, but I'm saying that if the movie spent more time with Ted Bundy and his upbringing, Ted Bundy carrying out some of the murders, or even more interactions between himself and his girlfriend Liz, would have made more insight be brought upon us to really see how this guy worked and how he was a murderous monster all throughout his life. This is something that other dramatizations of Ted Bundy were not able to accomplish, as well, as we never got full answers to how Bundy worked on the inside. Even towards the end of his life, before his execution, when he did confess to dozens and dozens of murders, we never got the full workings of this dude's head. Even with that too, though, the way this narrative flowed wasn't as focused as it should have been in the first place. This having to do with the directing by Joe Berlinger. And speaking of him, this guy also developed the Netflix docuseries Conversations with a Killer, the Ted Bundy tapes, earlier this year, just like Extremely Wicked has now been released on the same platform. I haven't watched any of that docuseries, but as I've mentioned before, I knew quite a bit about Ted Bundy going into watching Extremely Wicked. So with that, it is clear that Berlinger is knowledgeable on Ted Bundy as a subject. And I do see where he was coming from in trying to tell a story like this, so that the audience is left mostly in the dark, just like Liz was, in not knowing that Bundy really was this extremely wicked and shockingly evil and vile human being, as said during the sentencing of Bundy in the film, which did show off some of Zac Efron's best acting ever here. The way the camera does zoom in on him trying to keep a straight face while he is being sentenced to death, and also the final sequence of the film before the credits roll, I thought was effective as well. So the directing on that part, I thought, made for some really standout moments of this film. It seemed to me that Berlinger was more concerned with making an authentic looking and feeling movie to the era in which the Ted Bundy trial was happening. And on that angle, he definitely achieved that goal in how it's a technically well-made movie. From its cinematography, the costume design, the production design, all of it made me feel like I was really there and witnessing this notable trial that was one of the first criminal cases to be televised across the United States. The movie also ran at about an hour and 45 minutes, flying by briskly, but that also meant that if more time was given in it being a little over 2 hours, maybe even 2 hours and 10 or 15 minutes, more could have been given in going into the depths of Bundy's mind in just seeing how he was as a person, and not through the approach of Liz's character all throughout the film and going back and forth between it. This movie really had a tough time, as my friend Ray said earlier as we discussed the film, in finding a voice, in it being down to a level where there was a singular tone all across this movie, as I did find it tricky in that regard. But in speaking of that, this movie was suitably dark and dour, and one of the concerns that many people did have going into this film would be that it would glamorize Ted Bundy as a serial killer. Well, in real life, the way his trial and case were going down did show a lot of glamorization with him. A bunch of women who were in the same room with him as a part of the gallery did swoon at the sight of him. They thought he was dreamy. So really, that just added on to how this movie did look and feel authentic to what was going on during the 1970s as this all played out. I also found it surprising that this movie is mostly factual, according to a video I saw this morning by Watch Mojo in breaking down what Extremely Wicked got right and wrong in terms of historical accuracy, and most of it was apparently done well too. So again, this goes back to Berlinger's approach in making this film look and feel authentic to telling a story and how one would view Ted Bundy's trial in the way it did play out in real life. But in terms of going deeper and really going into the recesses of Bundy as a character and being a character study, this movie really didn't do that much. All in all, Extremely Wicked is a perfectly watchable movie. It's on Netflix, as I said, so it's readily available to watch anytime, along with Berlinger's Ted Bundy tapes, which I assume one should watch to get more of their Ted Bundy fix and to really go more into researching who he was or just being fascinated by this guy as a subject. It boasts a career best performance from Zac Efron as Ted Bundy, and that is a big cause to say that this movie is worth watching for him alone. And aside from that, I did think that this was a decent / okay watch overall. So with that and more, I cautiously recommend this film. My final verdict for Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile is 3 out of 5 stars. Thank you all, as always, for watching. Be sure to like this video, comment on what you thought of Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile. Social media links in the description. Subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll catch you on the next movie review.